FatEnzo.com, 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 FatEnzo.com.
Welcome to the Bobby Pickles podcast. I'm Bobby Pickles, and today I am podcasting from inside 27 Madison Avenue, which is the historic courthouse of the New York State Supreme Court, Appellate Division, First Department. I have to say it properly or it will not do my guest any justice. Actually, my guest today is a New York State Supreme Court justice. But before we get to today's interview, I would like to begin the show with a new segment entitled New York City Subway Music. Look for the hashtag NYC Subway Music on Instagram.
It was easier said than it's done. We were running away just for fun. It was hard to believe in plans for the evening when I am the only one. You can laugh, you can cry, and tell me you love me. Pass the flower, but there's one thing I like to do.
Meet Gabriel Royal. I happened by him at the First Avenue stop on the L line.
Oh shit, we got 2 minutes on this train over here.
2 minutes on the train?
Yeah, well, I mean, before...
You have it completely timed, huh?
Yeah, I know up and down when it's coming. I can even feel like the slight draft of wind. When I feel a breeze, I'm like, oh, the train's coming.
I asked him about the instrument that he's playing.
This is the cello, and I am using it in a very unorthodox form, as in singing and playing the cello is not necessarily so normal. So that's kind of my niche.
Yeah, you kind of like pick it too at the same time, right?
Yeah, doing pizzicato and being a black guy, songwriter on the cello. That's, you know what I'm saying? That if you see another nigga playing cello and singing, slap him because he's still in my act. It's pretty much what I'm saying. My sister told me be careful when falling in love. But just like a child, I went and bit off just a little too much. No, I don't remember us falling in love, but I'm sure that it happened. No, I don't remember us falling in love. This sort of thing is old-fashioned. My sister told me be careful, don't think with your heart. But just like a fool, I went and followed all the lights to the spot. It goes over and over again till we find our way back. Did you really have to even ask? No, I don't remember us falling in love, but I'm sure that it happened. No, I don't remember us falling in love. This sort of thing is old-fashioned. I know this, I know, I don't know. No, I don't know this, I know. Bum, 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 bum. No, I don't remember us falling in love, but I'm sure that it happened a long time ago. I don't know.
If you'd like to know more about Gabriel Royal and his music, he says to hit him up on Facebook or check out www.gabrielroyal.com. That's GABRIEL Royal.com.
Bobby Pickles podcast. He always says, "That's me." With a look on his face, he'll talk about anything. Tattoos, t-shirts, politics, history, and hot sauce on everything. Bobby Pickles. Pop culture, documentaries, conspiracy theories, sarcasm, and beer. It's a conversation, start listening, cause we're all here. Bobby Pickles podcast.
That's me. Thank you for tuning in to episode 16 of the Bobby Pickles podcast. My guest today is Associate Justice John W. Sweeny Jr., one of the acting justices of the Appellate Division of the New York State Supreme Court, First Judicial Department, which is headquartered in Manhattan. Is that not correct?
Not even close.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Let's go into it.
Sure, I guess.
Let's give you my title. It's a long one, but I'm an Associate Justice of the Appellate Division of the New York State Supreme Court for the First Judicial Department.
Okay.
Which means I'm an elected state Supreme Court judge, which in New York is the highest trial court. I am then appointed to the Appellate Division to serve. I'm now served 5-year terms on the Appellate Division. And the Appellate Division is an intermediate appellate court. The first department covers Manhattan and the Bronx.
That's right.
That's my title.
So that's a pretty long
one,
title.
But it's there. Yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty long title. So what I was saying was like completely inaccurate. How far off was I?
Well, you had some of the right terms, but just in the wrong places. We'll
I did that. I thought I was being, I tried to like write kind of active, and how I was.
The acting part is probably what got me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's acting, I guess.
Well, what it is, the Appellate Division, the state of New York is split up into 4 judicial departments. Each one has an appellate division. The first one, as I said, where I sit, is Manhattan and the Bronx.
Manhattan and the Bronx.
Even though I'm an elected state Supreme Court judge from the Hudson Valley, which is technically in the second department. But when you're an elected Supreme Court judge, you're then eligible to be appointed to the appellate division, and the governor appoints you to the appellate division, and he can appoint you anywhere he wants. Even though I came from the second department, I was appointed to the first department.
Yeah, see, I was going to ask you all these things. These are all questions that I was going to lead into.
There you go. And
so you're from Putnam County originally. Where is Putnam County?
Putnam County is due north of Westchester, due south of Dutchess County. It is bordered by the Hudson River on the west and the state of Connecticut on the east.
Right.
And we're a small county, but we're a proud county. But getting back to the point before also about presiding, I don't preside over the appellate division. I am one of the associate judges. We have a full complement of 20. We're down to 19 now. And our justice presiding is actually called Louis Gonzalez, who is the presiding justice of the appellate division. Each appellate division has a presiding justice.
So what exactly is the appellate court?
The appellate division is an intermediate appellate court, which means we take the appeals from the highest trial courts in our department. As I said, Manhattan and the Bronx for us. That's the Supreme Court, that's the Family Court, the Court of Claims, Surrogates Court. We also take appeals from the appellate term, which is an appellate court. This gets getting to the weeds a little bit now, but that's an appellate court that handles appeals from the lower trial courts, like the civil court, the housing court, and the criminal court. Sometimes we'll take appeals from the appellate term up to our court. Not often, but sometimes we do.
So it's basically all the appeals that are happening throughout New York State. They come here.
In the state court system, that's correct.
All aspects of law, civil, family, everything?
We do everything. Appellate judges are known as being generalists. We have to be. We take commercial, we take personal injury, we take malpractice, we take contract, every type of criminal case imaginable. We do wills and estates, we do family law, which is custody, which is domestic violence, which is termination of parental rights. We really run the gamut. Now, here in the First Department especially, because we're in Manhattan, we get a tremendous amount of commercial work, insurance work, contract work, which you might not see to as great an extent in the other departments. But they all get the personal injury and the contract and the criminal and so on and so forth.
So you're currently up for re-election, is that correct?
Right. As I said, even though I'm assigned to the Appellate Division, to be on the Appellate Division, you have to be a sitting state Supreme Court judge, which, as I said before, is the highest trial court in New York State. Parenthetically, we're probably the only appellate court, perhaps one other in the country, intermediate appellate court, where to be eligible for that court, you have to be a sitting judge of a particular court. In most states, you can be trial lawyers, professors, whatever, and get on the intermediate appellate court. But to be on the intermediate appellate court, you have to be a sitting Supreme Court judge, and Supreme Court judges in New York State are elected. We're elected for 14-year terms. I was elected in 99. I'm up again this year, and I'm running, though, back in the district where I was originally elected, not New York City, but in the Hudson Valley, the 5 counties, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, and Rockland.
Do you always run in Putnam County even though you sit in Manhattan?
As a trial judge, I was sitting in the Hudson Valley, coming from Putnam County, but I would sit anywhere throughout the 5 counties of the district. And in fact, I grew up in Orange County. I was an attorney there. Then I moved to Westchester for a while. Then I moved to Putnam. But even though Putnam is my home county, I run in the entire 9th Judicial District for re-election, not just Putnam. Putnam, in fact, is only 6% of the vote. So in that sense, it's nice being from there, but it's not that helpful when you're running.
I read somewhere that you actually were elected in 1987.
I was first elected to the county court in 1987. County court, when you get upstate, or what anybody in New York City refers to upstate being anything north of the Bronx River, county court handles your major felony cases. Upstate. In the city, it's all handled by Supreme Court judges. Upstate, it's rare, with the exception of some of the larger counties, such as Westchester, Supreme Court judges do mostly civil. County court judges do the criminal. And I was also what we call a multi-hat judge, though, because Putnam County was so small, it couldn't justify having judges for each of the different courts. So I also was the family court judge and the surrogate court judge. And I also was a full-time acting Supreme Court judge. So I wore 4 hats, so to speak, until I was elected to the Supreme Court full-time in 99.
Were you always a judge, or were you an attorney first?
Oh, you have to be an attorney first.
Are there ever anybody that just becomes a judge straight out of law school? No, you always
No, you can. For instance, in New York State, to be eligible for the county court, you have to be a lawyer in practice or admitted to practice for at least 5 years. To be on the state Supreme Court and the family court, for that matter as well, you have to be admitted to practice for 10 years. So there's no lawyer, at least on the county court level, who can come right out of law school and become a judge. You can become a town judge or something like that, but not a county level or state level judge.
What did you get your BA in?
My bachelor's was in government, which is basically political science. I got that at Notre Dame. And then I came to Fordham Law School, and I got my Juris Doctor there. And my career was I was in private practice. I was a law secretary, which is a confidential clerk, to 2 state Supreme Court judges. I was chief assistant district attorney of my home county. And then I ran for county court in 1986. And as you said, I started office there in 87.
So Fordham University, right?
Fordham Law School.
You like
right.
You like Arthur Avenue? Do you enjoy that?
No, in fact, the law
is
school.
That far? Oh, is that not even close to where the other Fordham is?
Right. The Rose Hill campus, the main campus, is by Arthur Avenue.
Right.
I know that well because I had 2 kids that went to high school up there. But the law school's at Lincoln Center.
Okay. How do you? I mean, well, while we're on the subject, though, How do you like Arthur Avenue and some of the Italian restaurants that are there?
I never got up there as much as I would have liked to, but Mario's was one in particular I particularly liked. But usually it was the type of thing when I'd go to Fordham, I'd be picking up one of my kids after school, because they went to Fordham Prep. I'd pick up one of the kids from school, and then we'd head back. So I never got to Arthur Avenue as much as I would have liked, but I did enjoy the few opportunities I had.
I really would like to capture maybe some of your war stories. Do you have any at all that you can talk about, like maybe as an attorney or as a judge? Does anything stick out, like something humorous maybe? Or
Well, you don't get that many humorous stories really as a judge. You get more tragic stories or sad stories.
Okay, so
I hate to say it, but
what's
that's what
like one of the
happens.
most tragic?
Well, the first county court case I had, as I said, county court judges do felony criminal work. And the first jury trial I had as a county court judge was a man who tried to poison and strangle his 7-month-old daughter. And I don't want to go into any more detail than that because you can just imagine the visual of how ugly that was. That was quite an introduction to being a trial judge. Especially it was difficult because when you have a jury and there were pictures taken of the little girl after the father had done what he had tried to do to her, and they were just awful, heart-wrenching pictures. And the question comes down because the district attorney, of course, wanted to present these to the jury to show the nature of the injuries, the extent of the damage that was done to this little girl. The defense lawyer didn't want them shown for the obvious reason that if the jury saw those pictures, they'd probably just leap over the railing and strangle his guy. They wouldn't even wait for to come to a verdict. For that reason, because we have a principle that if evidence can be more prejudicial, notwithstanding how probative it may be, you don't give it to the jury. And I made the decision then, which the district attorney didn't like, but I did not allow a number of the photographs to be shown to the jury because I knew they would be so inflamed and they would be so angry. They were going to take that out on somebody, and that somebody was going to be the defendant. Mm-hmm. If they're going to get the defendant, which they did convict him, I wanted him convicted only on evidence that was soberly and very quietly presented, and which it was, and there was plenty of other evidence. The DA did not need the pictures. The conviction came in, and the DA said later it was a good thing I didn't let it in because there's a good chance that case, which would have gone to the Appellate Division, in that case the Appellate Division Second Department, which is where Putnam County, whose jurisdiction would lie, they may well have tossed the case and sent it back, saying the fact that it was too prejudicial to show those pictures, and the guy couldn't get a fair trial. So that was one of the first introductions to really being sure how sensitive a judge has to be when it comes to dealing with the jury and protecting the rights of a defendant, regardless of what the nature of the crime is, regardless what the nature of what he's accused or how strong the evidence is against him.
Mm-hmm. So there's 4 divisions, right? There's 4 different divisions. There's the first division is here in Manhattan.
First
the
department.
Bronx. First department.
Right.
Second department's Brooklyn.
Second department is Brooklyn. Brooklyn is the Appellate Divisions were created when they basically recreated the court system in 1896. Splitting the state up into 4 departments sounded like a great idea at the time. But the fact is that back then when they created the second department, it was Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Long Island, which is Nassau and Suffolk, and the 5 counties where I come from in the Hudson Valley. Back then, there wasn't that much population in the Hudson Valley. There certainly wasn't on Long Island. Now, of course, we see what it's like. Mm-hmm. So right now, the second department has almost 40% of the population of the state of New York, and they are just buried in their cases. They have more judges than anybody else does in their appellate division, but they still have a tremendous amount of work.
Then there's a third division. That's up Albany.
Third department is in Albany. They take the counties north of Dutchess County, where my 9th district is, and the fourth department is most of western New York, from Syracuse west.
I read that New York State is like very different than all the other states and how the Supreme Court is, where the appellate court, right? It's not actually like the highest. You said it's the highest civil court, but it's not the highest court. There's the Court of Appeals.
Our nomenclature is really, to put it mildly, messed up in New York State. In most states, your Supreme Court is your Supreme Court, your highest court in the land, as the United States Supreme Court is the highest court for the federal government. In New York State, Supreme Court is a trial court. As I said, it's the highest trial court, but still it's a trial court. Court of Appeals in most states is the intermediate appellate court, where we are. In our state, it's the highest court.
Is this the only state that does that?
I don't know if we're the only state. I think if there are others, there sure aren't a heck of a lot more. For some reason, somebody had a great sense of humor or whatever when they set up our nomenclature.
Because I come from Florida, and it was completely new to me to read all that.
Sure, you have a Supreme Court in Florida, which is the Supreme Court.
You ever been to Florida?
I've been to Florida many times.
I've
never been in your court system, thank God. But,
no? Oh, yeah. It's very easy to land in the court system in Florida.
I'll leave that up to you, Bobby. That'll be the subject for another show.
All right. Or we can talk about it now. But I mean, it is. It is, and I dislike Florida.
That's why you're up here.
That's why I'm here.
Well, see?
I really do. It's kind of backwards, and it's a very good old boy the way they run things.
Well, any state where you can walk in your backyard and an alligator can come out and eat you up or something. That to me, that's a state I want to stay away from.
So you're appointed by the governor. But you're elected?
Right.
Okay.
As I said, you have to be eligible for the Appellate Division, you have to be an elected state Supreme Court judge.
Okay, so that's first.
That is correct.
And then the second is the
Then
governor.
when there are vacancies in the Appellate Division, you apply for them. You send in a resume. You send in a questionnaire, which is about 65 pages of cases you've been on, cases you've been affirmed, cases you've been reversed. You have to have character references. You have to have recommendations from people in the profession, from people out of the profession. Any disciplinary problems you've ever had, all this has to be listed. That is submitted to a panel that consists of people appointed by a number of bodies, the governor, the chief judge of the state, the heads of the legislature, and the State Bar Association all have members on this committee. They will review your resume. They will decide from the resume submitted how many people or which people they want to actually give interviews to. Then if you make it to the interview at your second phase, you come in, they can interview you about anything on the resume. They can interview you about, why did you have this problem with this case? Or are there people who would come out against you, and why would they? Things of that nature. If you pass that interview, they will then vote on you and send your name to the governor saying this person is approved. We don't know, at least we didn't know until recently. That's sort of changed in the last few years. We didn't know which names are actually passed up to the governor for consideration, which ones didn't get past the interview. The governor then picks from the people who are approved by the interview committee.
So when you were chosen, you didn't know. It's kind of like having a baby. You don't know if you're having a boy or a girl.
Not until you get the phone call.
That was it.
Not until you get the phone call.
But then now that you hold the office and you're coming up for re-election, you don't have to get the approval from the governor again, right?
Well,
you just have to get elected.
No, that's not true. Actually,
Really?
now you have to get reelected to be eligible to stay on the Appellate Division. But once you get reelected, you start a new term as a state Supreme Court judge, which means you start a new term as an Appellate Division judge. Now, you'd keep your seniority that you had before, but the governor still has to reappoint you.
Wow.
Now, by the same token, though, I don't know of any instance where a governor has not reappointed somebody who's won reelection.
Right.
Republican or Democrat even. They don't interfere with that. They figure if you've been on the Appellate Division, if you've done a good job, whoever it is, they're going to reappoint you.
Are you a Republican or a Democrat?
I'm a registered Republican.
Okay.
But I'm looking for a lot of Democrat support too. I'm very fortunate because being here, I was appointed to this court by a Republican governor, but I was made a senior judge on this court by a Democratic governor. So I'd like to think that there's an across-the-board approval for the way I've done my job.
How do you feel about gun laws?
I can't comment on that, except that I will, because they could end up in my court.
That's right.
In fact, we've already had a major decision in this court a while ago. I myself was not on the panel that decided it. We sit in panels of 5. But there was a major decision about the New York Times trying to get information about the names and addresses of people who had pistol permits, and our court didn't allow it.
So you can't comment about a lot of things I want to ask you probably.
That's absolutely right. That's why judicial elections are totally different from other elections for that reason. We can't come out and say, I'm in favor of restricting guns or giving more gun rights, or I'm in favor of
marijuana
death penalty,
legalization.
I'm in favor of legalization of marijuana, all kinds of things. You can't get into that for the simple reason that those cases could end up in front of you. And if you have given an opinion already, the lawyers, and understandably so, would say, wait a minute, Judge Sweeny, you can't sit on that case. You've already given an opinion that you feel either black or white on this issue. So for that reason, judicial elections are consisting mostly of, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is my experience, please consider me.
Right. So what are you starting to do with your campaign right now?
The campaign now is, because in New York State we have a number of minor parties as well, is trying to get minor party support. And it's also getting people together who can do fundraising for you. Judges themselves are not allowed to do fundraising. You have to have separate committees to do that. I've got a committee set up. And with that, then you go around to all different events and you meet people and you introduce yourself to those who may not know you. Mm-hmm. And the 9th District, where I am, the 5 counties, it's very large. It's 2 million people, borders on 4 different states. So it's a lot of driving.
So do you go around doing stump speeches?
You do stump speeches again, but it's not like, vote for me because I'll give you your guns or I'll take away their guns or I'll do this or that on the marijuana or whatever.
Yeah, this is what I've done.
This is what I've done. This is my background. This is my experience. And people give people a chance to say, yeah, he doesn't have three heads, or he looks like a pretty good fellow to me.
Yeah. What about some defining arguments that stick out in your mind that you've had to rule on before?
The greatest thing I like about this court, especially being in Manhattan, is you get the best lawyers, and especially appellate lawyers. Appellate practice is a specialty. Knowing how to get in front of a judge when you're only given maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes to argue a case, especially when you've got cases as we have down here where there could be billions of dollars on the line. You need an attorney who, number one, is not only articulate, but quick on his or her feet, knows the case cold, gets right to the point, will not be distracted by a question, which obviously the attorney will answer the question, but then gets right back to the point he or she is trying to make. It's a joy when you've got a really good attorney in front of you who knows the case cold. It's just like
it's the major leagues of major leagues.
Absolutely, absolutely. As I said, you've got some of these cases reach the billions of dollars. You're not giving that to some kid out of law school.
Can we talk about where we're conducting this podcast right now? Because I really am, absolutely so elated and happy and appreciative that you invited me into your chambers and into this awesome building, this historic building.
This is an awesome building. For those who watch Boardwalk Empire, if they saw an episode last season where Secretary of the Treasury Mellon, or the character playing him, was supposedly being grilled by a bunch of Congress people in this beautiful ornate room, that was our courtroom. We allowed them in to do the filming there. It's a beautiful building. It was built originally in the early 1900s. It was expanded after that. The city, bless their hearts, spent a lot of money to renovate it about 10 years ago, just around the time that I came on the bench. It's got a great location here across from Madison Square Park. And it's a beautiful building, which we encourage people to come and see. In fact, we know it's on a number of guidebooks. And I think people, if they're in the neighborhood, should come in. If the court is not in session, the officers will let you take a look at the courtroom. And because as you've seen, it's a magnificent courtroom.
Absolutely.
I think it's the most beautiful courtroom I've ever seen. I can't imagine.
Those seats that are in there, right? How old are those seats?
Well, those may not go back all the way to the early 1900s, but they're pretty darn close.
Really?
And the fact is, it's just magnificent work that was done here. This was back in the days when we could spend money on a nice court structure, because the courts were where the people came to get their ultimate justice. And it was a way of saying to the public, this is how seriously we treat you. We think your decisions should be made in a great building because your matters are important to us. They're important to society to get it right. And we want a nice location where you can have all that done.
What are some aspects about being a judge that you really enjoy? Like some of your work?
I enjoy making decisions, which you really have to do. When you're a judge, you can't sit back and try to pass it off to somebody else or delay it indefinitely or try to fudge something and get around it. You have to make a decision. The case came to you because nobody else could get it resolved, because the parties could not work it out among themselves. Let's talk civil now primarily, because there was no place else to go. And the fact is they needed to come to court and have a judge say this is what it should be, yes or no. And if they don't like that decision, they come to an appellate court such as us. And 5 judges will say this is how it is, yes or no. You have to enjoy the responsibility. You have to enjoy really taking the bull by the horns and making a decision, even if it's going to upset a lot of people. And the old joke is you always upset at least half the people who come into you. But if you enjoy doing that, then you enjoy being a judge, and I really do.
Would you say you're like a type A personality?
Not really, no. I don't think I am. I think, and I don't think most judges are, because the nature of the work is, especially the appellate work, we're called monks sometime because simply our work is reading and writing. So you've got to sit back, don't get caught up in the emotion, don't get caught up in the craziness that is going around. Just listen to what the arguments are and make a rational, sober decision as to what is happening. So really, type A personality has a tougher time, I think, as a judge. You'll find most judges, maybe not the most exciting people in the world to be around, but you want that. You want someone who's a little quiet, who's very thoughtful, very pensive, and takes their time.
What are some of the things about being a judge that you dislike? If any.
We've had difficulty over the years with our pay adjustments. We went 13 years without a pay adjustment, and we were like 13 years behind the rate of inflation. Now, with a pay adjustment, we're only 8 years behind the rate of inflation. So I think As I said before when I was talking about this building, back in the day when they could spend the money on courthouses, I think there was a little more respect given to the judiciary in terms of the importance of our work in society. Now, because there are so many demands on government, city governments, state governments, federal governments, that there's so many other places money has to go, it's kind of easy to forget the judges. It's easy to forget the needs of the staff and so forth, because we don't have a political constituency. So we can't go out there and demand this, and we can't promise to get you votes, and we can't promise to do campaign contributions for you. So
what can you do then?
Exactly. So as a result, we depend. I'll use my an analogy to Tennessee Williams. We depend upon the kindness of strangers, although our strangers are the New York State legislature.
I mean, you still make a pretty penny, however.
Oh, well, listen, I can't complain about that. I make a good living. It gets somewhat disconcerting when you're sitting on the bench and you see a lawyer who just got out of law school, just got admitted, first day in court, and that lawyer is already making more money than you are. That's a little bit, as I say, disconcerting. But you accept it. When you come into this profession, you accept the fact you're not doing this for the money. I have a very good friend of mine who's a judge in the federal courts. Federal courts are appointed for life. But she said once, we don't want anybody who's coming into this job for the money. In other words, we want people who are taking pay cuts to come here, because that's how much you realize the importance of being a judge. And I think that's a great attitude that she has, and I think it's an attitude that most of us have as well. We understand we can make more money in private practice or doing something else, but we enjoy what we do. We understand how important it is. And as you said, we're not starving, so we're not asking for any sympathy.
Are you allowed to do anything in the private sector while you hold office?
There's a limited amount of things you can do, as long as they don't interfere with the title, as long as they don't reflect upon your being a judge. The biggest thing is you'll find a number of judges who teach. They'll teach in law schools. They'll teach in colleges. They write separately.
Do you teach?
I don't know.
Have you ever?
I looked into it actually once, but quite frankly, I didn't think I had the time to devote to it, not to do the job here that I had to do. But that's about it for judges. You're allowed to do some things like that on the side, but that's about it.
What are your thoughts regarding the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling on Citizen United? Can you talk about that at all?
I really can't talk about it because, for number one, I'm running for election myself this year, so I'm kind of in the situation about campaigning. Although it's interesting, there is a limit in judicial campaigns to what lawyers can contribute to a judge. Whereas Citizens United is pretty much, if you got the money, spend it, as long as it's through a certain organization. Law firms, for instance, can only spend $3,500 maximum on a judge's campaign if they still want to appear in front of that judge, which $3,500 to some people sounds like a lot of money. But when you consider some of the law firms in New York City and the volume of money they make, that's not all that much. But it's the idea of showing to the public, lawyers can't come in and just lavish judges with a lot of money and then walk in the next day and say, "Hi, Judge, here I am."
Do you golf?
I live on a golf course upstate, and I don't play golf.
No?
So I'm the judge who doesn't play golf. So we don't all play golf. We don't all look like Andy Hardy's father, although most of your listeners probably have no idea who Andy Hardy is.
Who is Andy Hardy?
Andy Hardy was a series of movies made by MGM in the 30s and 40s, starring a very young Mickey Rooney as Andy Hardy, and his father was Judge Hardy, who had the white hair, the deep voice, serious, sober man. That's my growing up. Most people think of judges as that.
Yeah. I guess
now they probably think of judges as Judge Judy.
Exactly.
Yes.
But you're not like that at all.
I'm not like Judge Judy, although ironically, Judge Judy used to live in my county, and her son is our district attorney in Putnam County.
What is the deal with this podium right here?
I have a podium over here because I have a chiropractor who said don't sit too much during the day. It's very bad for you. And, of course, being judges, as I said, in the appellate court especially, reading and writing is what we do. So when do you do that? You do it sitting down. So I purposely have the podium here to stand up to do a lot of my reading.
Yeah,
Save my back. What the heck?
God, what else can we talk about? Because I wanted to get into some of these other things, and I was preparing for that. I don't know. Can I ask you something like randomly personal? Because I make T-shirts, okay?
Okay.
And I make T-shirts based on people of history, politics, and pop culture.
Well, history I love.
Right.
Pop
But they're
culture,
kind of like caricatures, and they're the faces. It depicts the person, the
Okay.
image. How is that going to mess me up in the future? I mean,
Why should it mess you up? Sounds like a good way to make some money.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But what about like paying like a licensing fee to these people or something like that? If somebody is
pick dead people.
I heard. I think even dead people, right? Even dead people, you still have to pay.
Bobby, I tell you, I'm getting to an area of law that I really don't know that well, so I'm not going to get. I'm going to say something that's going to end up getting you sued by somebody.
Yeah, right. But it sounds like a good idea, right?
I think it sounds like a fascinating.
I think it's like the Wikipedia generation. Now you can learn so much. You can self-educate. I love that. And these are some of my heroes: Mark Twain, Huey Long. Do you like Huey Long, by the way? Like, what are your feelings on Huey Long?
I'll give you one quick Huey Long story. I was down in Louisiana years ago, and I went to Baton Rouge, and I went to the state capitol. And I walked in the door of the state capitol, and there's a nice lady sitting behind the information desk. And she just looked at me and said, "Y'all want to see the state senate? You want to see where Huey got shot?" So that was it was like the biggest tourist attraction in Baton Rouge, not for the government, but simply to see the spot where Huey Long got shot.
I would love to see that. I know so much.
It's a hallway. That's all it is.
I know. Yeah. Where
no big deal.
The doctor's son came in.
The doctor's son, and there are no bullet holes in the hallway or anything like that. It's just they have a little plaque marked. This is where he got shot.
I just, for some reason, I'm just fascinated by Huey Long. The fact that somebody can amass that much power, senator and governor at the same time, essentially, right?
Well, he was an incredibly ambitious guy, and he was in the right place at the right time, and people liked what he said.
But his viewpoints you do not agree with. I mean, he's a populist, right? He's a share your wealth.
Well, there's a lot of things about Huey Long I think most people would agree with. It's if he was so far bizarre in terms of what he believed, people wouldn't have followed him. But the fact is, the way he did things and the way he would crush people, crush opposition, and that was the scariest part about him. And he was, to me, it was frightening to see someone amass that much power and really abuse it in a sense the way he did. But that Huey Long is probably a discussion for another day.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you meeting with me today.
Bobby, it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for allowing me in your chamber and allowing me to conduct this interview. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
1, 2, 3. FatEnzo.com. 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 FatEnzo.com.